Alright guys, welcome back to the Pocket Mads channel. It's Maddie here. Today, on Wednesday, like we normally do on Wednesdays, we're going to cover a bunch of crazy decks that you would not really consider to be top tier meta decks, but have done well at recent online tournaments. I am aware that today is April 1st, it's April Fool's. This video might seem like an April Fool's joke, just like every sort of wacky Wednesday video is, because some of these decks are going to seem absolutely outlandish to you guys. But trust me, these are real decks that real people played and really did well with in online tournaments. So again, it's kind of funny that this is the video that we're doing on April Fool's, but honestly, a completely serious video, because all I want to do here is highlight some really interesting decks and the players in the tournaments that these players played in. That being said, you got to go register for our tournament this weekend. So tons of tournaments all throughout the week. People ask me all the time. They're like, you know, Maddie, can you like maybe change the tournament time for PMPT? There's a bunch of other tournaments throughout the week that I definitely would recommend you check out and play in. Other big tournaments as well. However, PMPT number 26, the second tournament of this new season, Super Shine is what we're calling it, is this Saturday, April 4th at noontime. Link to register down in the description below. Also, we have uploaded our second video just recently to the Champion Mads channel. So if you're interested in Pokemon Champions, I made a video talking about all of the monetization features and structures and all of the things you can buy and whether or not all of those things are worthwhile and worth your money. So definitely go check out that video. It would mean a lot to me, and it supports that second channel. Link to that will be also down in the description below. Anyway, let's just get into it, because again, I think early in this season, you know, there's a bunch of new cards. Things are just all over the place. Early seasons are exciting because it's all of these new decks and new strategies vying for, I would say, like top tier meta viability. But there's also a bunch of like wacky decks that end up doing pretty well because the meta hasn't been figured out at all. So keep that in mind. Take that with a grain of salt. A lot of the decks that we're going to talk about today, you might never see them again, but that doesn't mean they're not fun, not cool, and that you shouldn't try them out. The first deck we're going to take a look at here is from the Breakfast Club Weekly. This is Turtle Geek from Canada, and this is Rampardos. So this is Fighting Toolbox. He has teched in a Teal Mask Ogerpon, of course, probably for all of the sleep scam stuff that is going around, but I actually really like this deck list for a number of different reasons. So I think Rampardos is a strong Pokemon, and always has been. I think one of the defining factors of Rampardos and really all of the other fossil Pokemon for the last couple of months is, you know, Chingling's been very prominent, and it still is to some degree, but I wouldn't say Chingling is nearly as common right now as it has been in previous seasons. And I think that Chingling is one of the biggest deterring factors from playing fossil Pokemon, because, like I always say, these fossil cards are item cards while they are in your hand until you play them onto the bench, but you can't play them if you're under item lock by Chingling. So, you know, if Chingling's popular, fossils kind of struggle, but one thing is for sure, Rampardos is still a strong Pokemon. Probably, and I know it's kind of crazy to think about, but probably still the strongest fighting type card that we have available to us in Pokemon Pocket. And this is going to be a Lucario Fighting Toolbox deck with Rampardos, Hitmontop, Teal Mask Ogerpon, Mesagosa as well to find our evolution Pokemon. Double Copycat, double Research. To be honest, I think everything in the game is pretty well positioned for Rampardos to be a relevant Pokemon, a relevant attacking Pokemon, other than, of course, Chingling. So this was a very unique deck list. He went 9-2-1, which is an incredible record at this tournament. We take a look at his matches here. He lost to Giratina Darkrai, and then lost to Suicune Excalibur, but beat literally every other deck in his path. Lots of Lightning, and I think that's probably a decent little calling card for Rampardos right now at this point in the season, is that, you know, these new Oricorio, Manectric, Magnezone decks, they're all over the place. Lightning is definitely becoming potentially the #1 archetype this season, which I know some people might not love, but what that does do is maybe open up the path for things like Rampardos to kind of come in and be especially relevant. So I just wanted to highlight this because I think it was the only Rampardos deck that I've seen do well in a very long time. And I think it's cool, you know? The Teal Mask Ogerpon, of course, is going to be really relevant. But I love Hitmontop as a card. I think Hitmontop is one of the most underrated Pokemon in the entire game. It's just a fighting Pokemon. So because there's not really any fighting type decks, people don't really play Hitmontop. This is a very strong card. Does 20 to the active, 20 to a bench Pokemon. So that spread damage for only 1 energy, 80 HP is honestly a really big deal. And that is boosted, at least the active damage is boosted by Lucario. So yeah, there you go. Rampardos, shout out to Turtle Geek from Canada. Next up at the same Breakfast Club is going to be Wawan. Wawan. I can never say this man's name, but he is one of the all-time GOATs in Pokemon Pocket. Froggy X Wawan from France. playing Giratina Darkrai. So, my boy busted it out for the tournament here, went 8-2. I had also a comment recently talking about whether or not they thought Giratina Darkrai was a relevant deck in this metagame. I think Giratina Darkrai is always somewhat relevant, but again, it's just not something that's going to see that much play. Saw a little bit of fringe play last season with the inclusion of Starting Plains and then Peculiar Plaza from the season prior. I think that these are cards that really did buff Giratina Darkrai pretty heavily. Of course, Giratina loves Lucky Ice Pop, and Indeedee's always a good inclusion. So, I think that, if you're a good player, Giratina Darkrai is always interesting because it seems, I think a lot of people think that it's one of the simplest, easiest decks to play, but historically, it's actually been one of the more complex, high skill gap decks to play. But if you know how to play Giratina Darkrai, if you feel comfortable playing this deck list, I think it's probably always has the potential to do well, right? Especially with all of these recent buffs. I just think there's so many strong cards in the game. 190 HP Giratina EX is strong. You can't tell me otherwise. This deck does play 1 cape, double Rocky helmets, no Poncho. No Poncho's a little bit scary. You might want that Poncho down there. Maybe you kind of slap it on a Pokemon after you retreat to the bench after it's damaged, or maybe you just kind of throw it onto the Indeedee. I think the concept for this deck, though, is that because we have Starting Plains and Giant Cape, you should be able to just sort of out HP things like Qianpao. So you don't really need Protect a Poncho. That's kind of the concept, I think. Yeah, I think Giratina Darkrai is interesting, and I wanted to highlight it because some people have asked me about it, and here is Wawin, one of the best players in the game, going 8-2 at a tournament. A fairly large tournament as well. Shout out to the Breakfast Club, but 8-2 is a great record, further proving that, at any point in time, things like Giratina Darkrai can beat you. It's a lot of damage. It's just as much damage as it was before, but I think the inclusion of Mega Pokemon kind of made Giratina Darkrai a little bit better. I know it sounds crazy to say, but I think Giratina Darkrai has always done decent into Suicune decks. And also at the end of the day, going through 2 strong basic EX Pokemon has proven to be a pretty effective strategy, even after Mega Pokemon have been released. But anyway, shout out to Wawin, 8-2, great record. Also, at the Breakfast Club Weekly, we've got this Ogerpon deck that I wanted to highlight because I thought it was very interesting. And this is Ombra Lands 89 from Italy. He went 6-3-1, and this very simply here is Teal Mask Ogerpon with Igglybuff and Darkrai. A deck that I actually really like conceptually this season. So it's basically you play a Sleep Scam deck, the core of the deck is Sleep Scam, and then you're playing it with Ogerpon so that you can just beat other Sleep Scam decks. It's a very funny strategy. This is a deck that likely would just play only grass energies, so you can attack with Ogerpon, which is a really cool aspect. Whenever you play Ogerpon in a grass energy deck and you can use it as an attacking option, I think it makes Ogerpon a lot better. Similarly to when you're playing Indeedee in a Psychic type deck, I think that makes Indeedee exponentially a lot better as well. So I really like this deck. Even though it's a Sleep Scam deck, it's probably my favorite Sleep Scam deck because it's just straight up Sleep Scam with a deck that makes you immune to Sleep Scam. And by Sleep Scam, I mean the Bad Dreams Darkrai, Igglybuff combo. Probably the new strongest combo in the game, but luckily, I think a lot of people were a little surprised why I did not put this stuff in S tier on our tier list, and that's just because it's definitely at the forefront of the metagame. And if you haven't seen the tier list, go check it out. We made it all yesterday. I put a lot of the strongest archetypes in A tier because they're being so heavily counterplayed right now. Things like Charizard, things like the Bad Dreams Darkrai combo decks. I put those decks in high A tier because they are just sort of the #1 most counterplay deck in the metagame right now. And if you look at the results from tournaments and win rates and stuff, it's typically sort of the counter meta decks that are taking over. So that's why I like this deck list. And I actually think it's kind of smart. I don't know if we have enough damage. If you're going up against any other deck that also, is immune to sleep, then you're probably going to struggle. But this is a deck that I think is good into other sleep decks and any deck that I guess is not immune to the sleep stuff. So really specific anti-counter meta type deck. It's very strange, but honestly, I really do like it. It's very simple too, and I think simple decks here, I always have a soft spot for simple decks that are effective. So there we go. And yeah, shout out to Ombra Lands 89 from Italy. Ogerpon Igglybuff is a hilarious thing to see, right? It's so fun. Conceptually, I don't know. Do you guys think this is funny or not? This is not April Fool's, I promise you. Literally, it's just the card that is immune to sleep and then the cards that put you to sleep just in a deck. And it does actually somewhat make sense, which I just find to be hilarious. Yeah, 6-3. Let's take a look at the matchups because I am curious. Lost to Manectric here, which, you're going to lose to Manectric sometimes. And then lost to Charizard, which is interesting, but I wonder if this Charizard deck these decks might have been playing something to kind of counteract sleep. And then we lost to a Suicune back Excalibur as well. Yeah, I like the deck. I think, the fact that Ogerpon maybe doesn't deal a ton of damage might be a bit of a downside here, but a really fun deck. Comment down below. Comment down below today, which of these decks do you think is your favorite out of all of this? Because You know, I think there's some funny stuff going around. Anyway, next up, also at the Breakfast Club, are all these decks from the Breakfast Club? Maybe they are. I don't know. We'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see. This is Elias Quinn from Outer Space, seemingly no country involved here. 631, and this is going to be the Manectric Igglybuff. So there might have been an example this week of this particular archetype placing better or having a better record than this player did. This is just an example of this archetype. I think we talked about it maybe late last week, and this is just straight up Manectric. Also with the Bad Dreams combo. One Oricorio thrown in, but that's what's crazy about this combo in particular, is that it does not care. This Darkrai has 3 colorless energies in the attack cost, and Igglybuff doesn't even attack with energies, so it's almost like, you know, like... Really? You know, are we doing that? Like, we can just play this with anything? That's why I think this archetype is going to be relevant, but I think definitely the most popular versions have been like the Altaria version, but I mean, you can play this combo with virtually anything in the entire game. Why not Mega Manectric, which is, again, one of the best new Pokemon in the game? I know a lot of people like are still on the fence about Manectric. I don't know if they feel super confidently that this card is good, but I don't think you can undervalue how consistent and how fast-paced cards like this are. You know, I think like turn 2 80 damage is strong no matter what, especially if you can get it out very, very consistently, which Manectric can't. And even if you don't get it on turn 2, if you have to get Manectric out on turn 3 or turn 4, maybe the Igglybuff Darkrai combo can take some prizes, the Oricorio as well. So, I mean, like, if you really think about this deck, I think this is a deck with very high tier potential. I don't think we put it on the tier list because the Bad Dreams Manectric combo hasn't seen nearly as much play as like other versions of Manectric, but I mean, it's going to be strong. Like, it just is going to be a strong deck list. So this deck's got a little of everything. You know, the Bad Dreams Oricorio Manectric combo, it's just a little bit toxic, I'm not going to lie. I have seen this a little bit, and I think we might have covered it last week, but I just wanted to highlight it again. For the people that maybe didn't see this, like, again, like, it just further illustrates you can play the Darkrai Igglybuff combo with virtually anything. We're going to see a lot of it this season. When you play ranked, like, it's going to be smart to probably play either like an Oricorio-based deck or Lightning-based deck, or play something that can negate the sleep stuff. Because trust me, like, you're not going to want to start losing games to just inherent bad RNG. You're going to want to be able to deal with this combo. So I know we have a couple of weeks until Ranked comes out, but I'm sure even by the time Ranked comes out, like, it's going to be a pretty prominent thing, the sleep combo stuff. But yeah, there we go. Shout out to Elias Quinn. Just one example, potentially someone this week playing the Bad Dreams combo with Manectric. 6-3-1, definitely a decent record. Lost to Turtle Geek, actually, the Rampardos deck that we took a look at, and then lost to an Igglybuff Sleep deck, and then lost to Magnezone and Manectric, but beat quite a few other meta decks, and that's what's crazy. You know, this season right now is a great illustration that there's so many decks, so many cards that are winnable. You know, if you go into a tournament now, you might see literally like a brand new deck win a tournament every week. It's just going to be one of those things where a lot of the stuff that got released recently is not only strong but very flexible, and you can play it in a lot of different ways. So it's going to be a very undefined, I would say like what do we call it? Like an uncentralized format, I think, this season. It's going to be very much non-centralized. There's going to be new stuff all over the place. Some's going to do well. Things are going to go up and down. It's going to be a very fun season. Next up, this is a good one here. We have Jolteon from Japan. I probably butchered the name, and I greatly apologize. But 8-1-1 record at a Breakfast Club, but a different Breakfast Club tournament, I imagine. Yeah, so this is a different one. Breakfast Clubs are all over the place. But this player here was playing Mega Dialga and Mega Scizor, which I love. I do love this. I think Dialga actually is probably one of the better partners for Scizor in a weird way. We'll break it all down. 8-1-1 is the record here. This player actually only lost to Suicune Excalibur. You know, it's kind of like that's going to happen. And then tied here against Froggy X Krups, playing Manectric in Oricorio Day 1. Beat a couple Hydreigons, though. Beat Steelix, beat Charizard, which is nuts. Beat Altaria, beat Suicune. Like, the Day 1 performance here is phenomenal, just beating a bunch of different meta decks. But here's the deck list. I think people also kind of disrespected Scizor. I think one of the things I got for feedback on our tier list yesterday was that Scizor was ranked too highly, but I think people are completely sleeping on Mega Scizor and how strong of a Pokemon this is. I think that because this deck list, the Scizor Revavroom combo, not only deals with the lightning type decks very well, it can deal with Oricorio very well with Revavroom and Training Arena. But I also think that Charizard, which is really the reason why Mega Scizor didn't do exponentially well in this opening few days of the season, is going to be seeing less and less and less play. And I think that's kind of a little rock, paper, scissors formulation that I am seeing early this season. Charizard beats Scizor. Scizor beats the lightning type decks, but those lightning or Choreo decks do beat Charizard. And that's a very interesting thing to note. And I think that just the way that things are trending moving forward, I can't sit here and tell you that Mega Scizor is not a strong card and that the Steel archetype has not been buffed tremendously over the last few seasons, right? We do have Steel Apron, we have Metal Core Barrier, we have Revavroom, we have Mega Scizor, even Mega Steelix. Mega Steelix won a tournament like literally yesterday, and that's another top tier deck. I think I probably could have ranked Mega Steelix a little bit higher. It just depends. If more people play it, you know, we'll have to wait and see. But Mega Scizor definitely really good. And here we're playing Dialga. And, you know, the thing about Dialga is that it's a Pokemon and it does damage, you know, but you know, it's not a bad leadoff. Like, you got to understand, a lot of the leadoffs that you're going to see in the meta right now are like baby Pokemon or like Choreo. Maybe they're, you know, the sleep stuff with like Igglybuff. Like the leadoff options in the game right now aren't very like crazy. You know, they're really not. They're not that like fast-paced and aggressive. Really, the only scary thing on like turn 2 is potentially Manectric, but also like Suicune if it goes second. The metagame kind of has slowed down pretty dramatically. Hydreigon's, of course, still in the metagame, but we're not really considering Hydreigon like you know, one of the most played archetypes right now. So Charizard's a bit of a slower deck. You know, Suicune can go slow if it goes first. So I think that, you know, Dialga going second is a very, very valuable Pokemon, but also a lot easier to kind of get into Dialga after, you know, potentially the first turn or two where we don't lead off with it, because we can U-turn Scyther or just, you know, go Revavroom, right? We can go Revavroom and just sort of free pivot into Dialga. So it makes this sort of Pokemon easier to kind of throw into your deck. Even if it's a little bit slower, that's fine, because the metagame's a little bit slower. And, you know, you're just going to deal a little bit of chip damage. Just a little bit of chip, By the time you go into Mega Scizor, like, it's a real danger. I don't think people respect the 160 damage that Mega Scizor is going to put to you. That's a lot. That is going to just KO things. And you got 200 HP. This thing is absolutely incredibly dangerous. Like, you're going to take double 160s. And a lot of decks in the game just aren't going to be able to deal with that, especially the Rocky Helmet damage and the chip damage from something like a Dialga. Revavroom can KO Choreo in one hit with Training Arena. Like, you cannot sleep on this stuff. This is stuff that is important. It really is. Now, I don't know what the final sort of version, the final form of Mega Scizor will be. Maybe it's Dialga. I don't know. Like, it's, you know, it's, again, early season, wide open. One thing I do know, though, is Mega Scizor Revavroom is a good deck. It's a strong combo. This deck only plays 1/1, and I think that's fine. I honestly, I think you definitely could get away with playing a 1/1 of Mega Scizor here. Only playing 5 basics, so I mean, it's, you know, it's not that inconsistent. And Dialga's not attacking until turn 2 anyway. Again, kind of a slower strategy. So, you know, even if you go second, all you need is that Scyther down on turn 2. Mega Turbo can accelerate to Scyther even if it's not, Scyther if it's not evolved into Scizor yet. Doesn't have to be a Steel type Pokemon. Anyway, shout out to Golju from Japan. Yeah, I love the deck. I really do. Probably a great player as well, I would imagine, but really slept on, or just a slept on deck. Beat double Hydreigon, beat Steelix, beat Suicune, beat Charizard, beat Gardevoir, beat Dark Greninja, beat Altaria. Like, you can't, like, you got to understand, this stuff is very, very good. The Charizard win is absolutely insanity. I don't understand that, but yeah, you know, you got to love it. Next up is going to be 2Breeze2 from the United States, also at the Breakfast Club Weekly. How many Breakfast Club tournaments are there? These people are running every day. Shout out to the Breakfast Club. There should be decks from other tournaments here, but anyway. 2Breeze2 playing Celebi, Serperior, 6-4. You know, this is one of those. Hey, like, yeah, we get it. Celebi went 6-4 at a tournament, you know, and we're going to talk about it. But, you know, I just can't sit here and tell you guys that I think Celebi is going to be top tier meta, but you know, there are aspects of Celebi that I think people don't fully appreciate. Celebi here can start attacking on your second. If you go second leading Celebi, it's almost like a ramp attacker. You know, like, I think a lot of people think Celebi is something you build up and then you bring it in at the end, but you know, Celebi can deal a lot of damage on turn 2. If you get double coin flip on turn 2, like, think about this scenario. You lead Celebi and you go second, right? Sure. So you attach an energy and you pass. Like I just said, most of the decks this season, especially if they go first, are not doing anything to you turn 2. You know, Celebi here, starting planes plus Leaf Cape. All of a sudden, we have 180 HP Celebi. We do have Lucky Ice Pop in the deck. And then it's turn 2. We get double energies on Celebi, but we also get into our Serperior. And now we're flipping 4 coins for damage on turn 2 potentially one-hit KOing anything, and then it just sort of snowballs from there, and I think it's very underrated. I think Celebi is one of the strongest cards in the entire game. Like, we have Starting Plains, we have Leaf Cape, we have all of this extra draw support, Lucky Ice Pop to keep it alive, Serperior Engine. Like, this can't be a bad deck. It's not... I'm not saying it's the most consistent thing in the world because it's coin flips, but in terms of potential and in strength, like, you gotta respect Celebi. We do see the Wuchien thrown in here, which, you know, I mean, you can attack for double energies. What's funny about Wuchien here is that, if you don't know what this card does, it's 4 energies, 90 damage, but next turn your opponent's Pokemon, their attacks cost 2 more colorless, so it's gonna just completely turn off a couple of Pokemon. So that in itself, Wuchien is kind of a win condition. So I actually really like this deck. I really do. Again, very reliant though on going second and also getting Serperior out turn 2, but lots of HP getting thrown around here. A lot of boosted HP, a lot of boosted, you know, Wuchien as well goes to 170 with Leaf Cape Starting Plains. Slept on. I really think it is all slept on a little bit. No surprise, honestly, that this player went 6-4. Let's see. So lost to Gardevoir in Oricorio Manectric, which is tough. Beat Charizard, beat Altaria, beat Magnezone, beat Jolteon Manectric, then lost to Saigon playing. Shout out to Saigon playing Jolteon Manectric. Beat Steelix. And then also beat Gourgeist. So I think the pacing of Manectric might be kind of tough for this deck list. It did lose 3 times to Manectric, so we got to keep that in mind. Also Gardevoir, which, you know, is going to be able to heal some damage if you get lucky on coin flips. But I don't even think the matchup spread or even really matters that much for this deck. I think you just kind of come in and you're like, do I go second? Do I flip coins? You know, do I win? Like, that's what it's about. Shout out to Celebi. Next up, at Highlights Blazing Inferno, number 12, is WXXSZ from France. Wixes from France, playing Arceus Crobat. A lot of people have asked me about Arceus, right? With the heavy sleep format, as we know, Arceus is, you know, immune to status conditions. Used to be somewhat relevant in certain scenarios. I think that Arceus, you know, suffers from really one problem, and that's the fact that it's a 3 energy attack cost, and you have to play it with baby Pokemon in ramp. Arceus isn't bad. It's just not a bad Pokemon. It requires a little bit more effort to kind of get it all going than maybe just some other stuff that you could play. So, and from a consistency standpoint, from like a consolidation of your deck standpoint, Arceus is, you know, a bit of a struggle, but it is immune to sleep, and you can go turn 2 Arceus, right, which has always been strong, and that's really what this deck is about. It's a bit of a high roll Arceus deck with Pichu, Mantike leads. You know, you go second, you get the ultimate force off on turn 2, you get the full bench, you get the Crobat turn 2. All of a sudden, you know, we're hitting for 160 on the active. You know, we're doing things, but you know, it's a bit of a reach. You know, that's all I'm saying. But I do think that Arceus is certainly pretty decent, and what I love about Crobat is that it can KO baby Pokemon, right? So you can kind of, on turn 2, if you do get Crobat out, you can kind of KO that Igglybuff or that Chingling and then force your opponent in and then maybe get damage off on a different Pokemon, maybe KOing it with Arceus, right? So I think Arceus is good. I think what's tough, though, is that, like, the weird thing about Arceus is that it released with, like, all of these cards that you're supposed to play with it. Saw a bit of a resurgence back in A4 when the baby Pokemon released, and then there just hasn't been a lot, like, of support and stuff that you would play Arceus with since, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of just kind of there to the wayside. And I think Mega Kangaskhan also kind of took its place for a bit, but Mega Kangaskhan is not immune to status conditions, so, you know, it has to be said. It certainly does. I don't know if it even matters because, like, you play Illima, you can just scoop it up anyway, but it's all good. Shout out to Wixes, WXXSZ, 7-3. Take a look at these matches here. Lost to Magnezone Manectric. The pacing of this deck is going to absolutely dominate people. Lost to Sleep Scam Altaria and then lost to Manectric Oricorio, so... Again, I think the pacing of Manectric really does punish decks that just can't get online quickly enough. And just a massively underrated aspect of Manectric is just how often it's going to hit you in the face for 80 on turn 2 and just every turn. You know, like, God forbid that it takes a KO on turn 2, and then next turn it does 110, and then it's just like, what do we do? You know, that really is the kind of the power of Manectric. Next up is Carver from France at the Power League. Sias collab. Prize Pokopia or $50. They're giving away Pokopia as a prize. That's awesome. That's super cool. Anyway, Carver here, Mega Venusaur. So, you know, I know some people have asked me about the old Mega Venusaur. Some people played it with Sleep Scam. You know, I think Mega Venusaur is Mega Venusaur. Honestly, probably a little bit more viable right now than you would think. But the difficult part is, at least in the first couple of days of the season, lots of Charizard. You know, and you don't want to get into the Charizard stuff if you're playing Mega Venusaur. But, you know, Ogerpon, you throw Ogerpon in the deck, that's going to make Ivysaur a little bit immune to the status conditions. And, you know, these Sleep Scam decks, like, they're not fast enough. If your opponent isn't, if they aren't immune to Sleep Scam, then like it's a good start off. But like if you're not able to put them asleep or deal damage, then most of those decks really don't do anything for a couple of turns, other than maybe the Altaria deck. So Venusaur has some potential, I think, coming into this week. You know, I know there's a lot of Oricorio and whatnot, but yeah, I think the poison and the sleep, like it's funny. Like Venusaur has kind of an issue, and it always has, which is like, do we play a card to KO Oricorio? Because it's not like Oricorio is going to get through Mega Venusaur with Heavy Helmet and Lily and Erica and PCL. It's just not going to. Like, the game's going to end and nothing will have happened, which is always tough. And you can't really bring anything in to hit Mega Venusaur because, again, like, it's just going to heal and then KO whatever you brought in, like a Magnezone or whatever. So the matchup into Oricorio oftentimes is a bit of a stalemate. And I think that's kind of a downside, a deterrent for Venusaur in a lot of competitive settings, is because we're trying to win, not tie the game. You know, and Venusaur certainly is pretty good at tying games. You know what I mean? It's one of those guys. Yeah, I mean, shout out to Venusaur. Nothing else to really say about it. Carver from France, 7-2-1, the Power League. Who won this tournament? I want to know who got the Pokopia. This man played 4 Charizards, but actually he went to what is this? He played double. What are these? He played double Charizard Ys, triple Charizard Ys. He actually beat one of them, which is phenomenal, but then ended up losing to Darkus. So yeah, crazy that he played 4 Charizards and won 2 of them. But you know, shout out to Venusaur, bro. That sleep will do things to you. Trust me. If you get caught in that Venusaur sleep, it's good. It's, you know, it's over. You can't get out of it. So it's pretty funny. Anyway. Next up is Froggy X Takahiro, who played a very creative at the same tournament here. Did play a very interesting, nice Slowbro deck. And I think Slowbro also a Pokemon that I love. Inherently some RNG going around with Slowbro, but not something to sleep on. But I really do like Slowbro. And yeah, 5-3 was the record here. Lost to Altaria 3 times. So this is a deck that I guess just, you know, maybe doesn't do too well into the Sleep Scam Altaria. I wonder if he just got caught in the cycle here. But let's take a look at the deck list. So Heavy Helmet, Slowbro, Indeedee, Irida, PCL. Maybe wishing he played double PCL instead of the Irida. Maybe that's something to note here. But the general, okay, I think I see what's happening. In fact, the issue with the Mantike stuff is that if you go second, like, you're never even going to be able to get into Mantike. Like, that's kind of the problem with the Mantike stuff. With Slowbro is like the bad dream, the strength of the Bad Dreams combo with Igglybuff is that they can attack you for 30 to 50 damage consistently on their first turn. So if you go second, like, you're gonna just get hit. So that's why you kind of need to have some way to just not lose turn 1. Like, you can lose games without have ever even played a turn against Sleep Scam, and that's why it's kind of toxic. And Mantike will just get KO'd. So if you go second and lead Mantike, which you kind of want to do with Slowbro, it's not gonna go well for you into Igglybuff Darkrai. So that's, you know, what we need. A bit of a tangent. What we need is a tool card that makes you immune to status conditions. I know we have Steel Apron, but I mean, like, one that literally just does that for any Pokemon, right? So Steel Apron is minus 10 damage only for Steel type Pokemon, and you're immune. I need something that is a tool card for anything, any type of Pokemon that doesn't do anything other than make you immune. Basically like a tool card that is Arceus' ability. I think that would probably be pretty healthy for the metagame, as just like a way to say, you know what? I'm not. But again, if you go second, you can't even attach the tool card, so it doesn't even really matter in that scenario. Anyway, crazy. I like this deck, and I think Slowbro should be played like this. When I was building Slowbro, I didn't play Indeedee, but I played Heavy Helmet and Healing. And the concept was that, you know, Slowbro's not dealing a ton of damage, but if you don't 2-hit KO this thing, like, you're going to lose, because it's just going to, you know, it's just going to deal too much damage throughout the board. Inherently coin flip deck, so, you know, that can be tough. But shout out to Slowbro. I absolutely love the deck. And, you know, and shout out to Takahiro, also one of the better players in the game. A very, very nice Slowbro deck. Next up is Harian from Italy, another player we're familiar with. He was playing Suicune and Gyarados. You remember the old ethical Suicune deck at the Pocket League, number 0. $100 prize pool. Shout out to them. This is the Wild Swing Suicune, actually also playing Qianpao, but this was a deck that I also really used to love. I think that Wild Swing Gyarados was really, really fun. This used to be the ethical way to play Suicune back when it was only Suicune Greninja. Now we've kind of just thrown in a Qianpao, which I think is fine. Yeah, I really like the deck. I think that the core concept of Gyarados was always underrated, because you had the ability to like tank damage and draw cards with Suicune. And then when you were like about to get KO'd, you just would go into Gyarados and then discard your damaged Pokemon. And I always found that to be very fun. And I think Qianpao probably makes this actually a bit better. This player went 8-2-1. So this deck list here, again, this is just a strategy that's never caught on. People just don't play this. Like, I think they always just play like the Greninja or the Baxcalibur now. But I think Gyarados is very much slept on. Again, Mantike, Manaphy to kind of supplement the energies. And again, these are Pokemon you can just kind of remove from your bench. Gyarados can deal, I think, 140 damage, which is a lot. That's a lot of damage, you know what I mean? Not something that you really can do ever. Like, that's more than Suicune or Qianpao can deal. And I think that's a pretty big deal. Also, you can just KO Oricorios and stuff. So I really like the deck, something that definitely deserves to see more play, but I just know people aren't going to really test this deck. But Harian was playing it, and he's an absolute legend, went 8-2, so shout out to him. Next up is a Sylveon sighting here for some reason. 5-2, Chiha Rotsure from Japan. Definitely have covered this player before. The name is very memorable. But he was playing the old the Evolution deck list. He's playing Jolteon Sylveon, but again, one Manectric thrown in. So it's really just a way to play Jolteon and Manectric, but played a little bit more spicy. Some of the stuff in here is crazy. He's got the Training Arena, PCL, Electrical Cord in here. The Sylveon, the one Sylveon thrown in is a little spicy, but I do love it. Sylveon kind of slept on, but maybe not as well. Like, I don't remember the last time I saw Sylveon in a deck list. I think the only time you would play Sylveon right now is if you're playing an Evolution deck anyway. But I think as far as like the Evolution decks go, it's actually quite a good card. It's just unfortunately the only Evolution anyone ever plays anymore is Jolteon, which is kind of sad. Yeah, Team Stargrunt thrown in as well. So what are you gonna do? No EV bags in here. Just none. Not even playing EV bag, but he is playing Sightseer. What a deck list. What a deck this is. What are your thoughts on this? This is a Japanese deck if I've ever seen them. The Japanese players are just built different. They just are on a different wavelength, and I love it. I love it every time they come out and bring something like this. You know, Jolteon Manectric, we've seen that before, but somebody was like, yeah, I get it. Let me just spice it up a little bit. Maybe let's just make it a little crazy and bring it to the tournament and just pop off and go 5-2. I mean, 5-2. It's 5-2. Lost to Suicune Baxcalibur, lost to Hydreigon, but beat Hydreigon and beat Suicune Baxcalibur. So 50-50 into those two decks, but was 2-0 in Dual Altaria and then beat a Charizard. So, I mean, a great little run. Did lose in Top Cut, unfortunately, right? But a great run there in day one, right? Little 5-1 action. Love to see that. Super cool. Lastly, we have Lucanigma, I think, from Italy. I don't know what this I don't know what these names are. So I'm always a little bit afraid, but it's Limitless. Hopefully they filter out the, weird names that mean weird things. But anyway, Italy, 8-3, Melmetal EX. This is at the PMPT number 25 tournament this past weekend. Did make day 2, went 8-3. So one of the few decks that made day 2 where people were like, what's going on? It's Melmetal EX, guys. It's straight up Melmetal. There's nothing else. Nothing else is here. It's just Melmetal. And again, I really think that this metagame isn't that fast. Like, I know Charizard might be a bit sketchy, but like into all of the Suicune stuff, into some of this like lightning type stuff that's not Oricorio, I really think Melmetal is like just a strong Pokemon. I'm actually curious what his matchups were. Let's see, like on the, was he playing, hold on. Yeah, he's playing double Steel Aprons. So you kind of just wall the sleep decks. But look at this variety, in fact. Beat Charizard somehow, beat 3 Charizards. So just undefeated into Charizard somehow, which I think is awesome. Beat a Kangaskhan deck, beat Altaria here. Lost twice to Magnezone, which is tough, but did beat one here. And then lost to Jolteon. So just kind of played a pretty wide variety. Beat Scizor as well, beat a Scizor player. So, I think Melmetal's kind of a slept on Pokemon. Traditionally something that was good into Suicune, but I guess this player just decided, I'm just going to go to day 2, go 8-2 or whatever, not even hit Suicune. But yeah, I really do like Melmetal, and I just think the Steel stuff is really good. Steel Apron right now has been a very, very good card into the heavy sleep metagame, and Steel Apron's broken. It really is a broken card. So shout out to Melmetal, shout out. I mean, 170 on a 2 prize Pokemon is kind of aggressive, and we do have Lucky Ice Pop. So I think, all that being said, this likely is just a high roll Ice Pop deck, but as we know, that's certainly something that can win games sometimes. Steelix does the same thing, so why not Melmetal, right? Why not? Why not Melmetal? Anyway, guys, that is the video today. Shout out to all of these players, all of these tournaments. What did you think of these decks? You know what I mean? I think I love doing the Wednesday video series and highlighting strange decks that do well in online tournaments. And I think early in this season particularly, has been very fun. So I would love to hear your opinions about the metagame right now, about these deck lists. What deck are you playing? What strategy do you think is slept on? You know, have you surprised with any decks at tournaments, things like that? I would love to hear about it. But that's the video today. No real April Fools. I don't have anything for you, unfortunately, but hopefully you enjoy the video. And yeah, there it is. All right, guys, peace out. Have a good one. We'll see you guys later. Bye.